Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavadi Pashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, and also one of the things as well, it seems like since we changed the time, a lot of devotees finding it difficult to make this time or your time at 12:30. I know Mother Chandravali, she is doing service for the Lord. She's cooking the Lord's Raj Bhoga. But anyway, I think we can continue. I can't really think of another way of how to go about it. Because for me, 6 p.m. your time is like 11:30 p.m. my time. So it's a bit difficult, you know. But anyway, let's go ahead. Devotees can listen to the recordings if they're so inspired. Okay. It comes, oh, Vijay Krishna's here. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And here comes Balanimai, all rolling in. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Hare Krishna. Glad you could make it this time.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Hare Krishna. Just wait for Balanimai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Balanimai. Thank you for
Hare
joining.
Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
It's a good sign. You joined us the second week.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, we said the prayers. We said our prayers to Srila Prabhupada. So we begin. Now, what I wanted to do, I just wanted before we go on to the subject we're speaking of is spontaneous devotional service, and before I go on to describing the details of that practice, I wanted to just cover again, which I think very important points that we discussed last week, but I'll do it kind of briefly. As we mentioned, the qualification or the inspiration to follow regulative devotional service is the scripture, is faith in scripture. So there's two practices. There's regulated devotional service, and there's spontane, and there's Raganuga Sadhana. So to practice the first one, the qualification is going to be faith in scripture, and in one sense, fear, kind of trepidation of not following scripture. So, but the qualification for spontaneous devotional service, anyone can say what that is. One brief word. It's four letters.
Is it greed?
Greed, yeah, otherwise known as loba. Yeah. So now then, this is what qualifies a devotee to practice what's known as spontaneous devotional service. It's greed, a loba. So where does it come from? Generally, it's going to come from hearing about Krishna's pastimes, and there's generally there's two types of greed. There's one that is that's already awakened, when one's ecstatic love is awakened, that's at the stage of bhava, and that's known as complete greed. Then there's the greed at the stage of practice for a conditioned soul who's not yet awakened to love. That's called ajata rati. Okay, so if we're going too fast for anyone, just if anything's not clear, just you can ask some questions. I'm just summarizing what we did last week. Yeah, but not, I don't want to take up the whole class, but anyway. So this greed is a strong eagerness. Prabhupada called it an ambition. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions a less significant greed, as well in Gopika, and that's one that is temporary. Yeah, so it manifests for some time when they might hear a class about Krishna or read something about Krishna, become very inspired, but it's generally short-lived. So it's not really of the first category. It's kind of, it doesn't endure. In that way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls it immature. Okay. So then, again, it arises from the effect of hearing. That's the effect. There should be an effect. So we have different stages of devotional service, and devotional service in practice, then devotional service in bhava, devotional service in prema. So sadhana, the idea, it qualifies us to achieve bhava, but we're not speaking about bhava here in that exact context. But genuine greed arises, and it's an effect of hearing about Krishna's quality, pastimes, etc. So yeah, also Prabhupada mentions that seeing and serving the deity, this is a nectar of devotion. Seeing and serving Krishna's beautiful deity form has a similar effect of awakening greed. Something interesting to note. Now, there's the common between the two. Remember, we mentioned these two types of greed. One is a greed in the practicing devotee, more it's like an ambition, someone who's not awakened to love. Then there's a greed of someone who has awakened to love. Yeah. So there's one thing that they both have in common, and that is that one has no interest in anything else in this material world. Either the greed that's for a practicing devotee, when they develop this greed, they have no attraction for anything in the material world. Otherwise, they couldn't have that greed. If they're interested in the material world, they've still got material, they're still planning material desires, etc. They're greedy for material things, sense enjoyment. Then, if they think or they say they possess some greed, then it's just a cheating, it's just an imitation. Okay, so quite high standard in one sense, but for practicing devotee, yeah, and for a someone who has developed love, then that greed is very intense. Yeah. So, in other words, just highlighting this is that so we shouldn't be misled. Maharaj writes here that readers who understand the essence of this statement will not be misled by a semblance of greed. Remember, we spent a long time speaking about the semblance of devotion. So Maharaj is using that same logic here, like a semblance of greed. Like a classic example. Someone comes into the temple, Krishna, 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 Krishna. I love you, Krishna, Krishna. Then when they leave the temple, then they start smoking. They light up a cigarette. Or they go to, they're doing lots of non-devotional activities. So we don't, that's the semblance. That's not the real thing. Okay. All right. So that was, and yeah, let me just go over this as well. What stage of devotion does greed generally appear? Well, it can appear, generally it's going to appear at the stage of steadiness. It can appear from a previous life, just like Maharaj gives the example of Bharat Maharaj, who was very greedy in the body of a deer to hear and chant about the glories of the Lord. So that was coming from his previous life. Yeah. But generally, it's going to appear at the stage of steadiness or beyond. Yeah. And I'll just read this here. I think this is very relevant. Srila Prabhupada writes, Nectar Devotion, chapter 16. We must always remember, however, that such eagerness to follow in the footsteps of the denzins of Raj, that's called Raganuga Bhakti, okay, is not possible unless one is free from material contamination. In the practice of devotional service, there is a stage called Anartha Nibriti, in which all material contamination gradually disappears. Sometimes persons are found to be imitating such devotional love before they have become free from anarthas or unwanted habits. Yeah. So I thought it was important just to emphasize that again before we move on to the next chapter. Okay. Any questions or comments on that before I pull up the next chapter? Okay, we're ready, steady, go. Part 2. Okay, so hold on to your seats. So this is part 2. It's going to get into some details. This chapter is going to, Maharaj is going to describe the activities that someone does who's influenced by greed. And remember that it doesn't mean that the devotee is liberated. They are still a practicing devotee, but they've developed the greed for the pastimes of Krishna. Yeah. So there's two aspects to this. Maharaj speaks on the famous verse from Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, Seva Sadaka Arupena Sita Rupani Tatrahi. So Raganuga Bhakti Yoga has two aspects. One's external and one's internal. Yeah. Seva Sadaka Arupena. Yeah. So externally, you read this in Nectar Devotion, Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu. Qualified devotees at this stage, they will practice like neophytes. They will follow the scriptural injunctions of regulative devotion. So these are the devotees who have developed greed. Externally, they will follow the scriptural injunctions and of regulative devotion. So externally, it all seems the same, but they're inspired internally in a different way. Okay? So an interesting way we can understand this is, one second. Yeah, so they do as the associates of Lord Chaitanya did. They will engage in hearing and chanting. So the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, that will explain that more, but they are showing the external activities of a sadhaka, which means they're absorbed in hearing and chanting. All right, so that's clear, yeah? That's the external. Yeah. So, yes. So, in other words, just as Lord Chaitanya's followers who have an internal mood, externally, they were engaged in the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like Rupa Goswami, that's an easy one to remember. He is Rupa Manjari. But he was engaged in building temples, writing books, and serving the mission to spread Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Now, but they think of their relationship with Krishna internally, and they follow the activities of one of the residents of Vrindavan, to whom they had become attracted. I would explain that more. Is that clear so far? Okay. Balanima is nodding. That's a good sign. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna. Could I just ask a question actually?
Yes.
So this there's the idea that some devotees are, oh sorry, maybe you'll get into this, but it's like seems that some devotees are externally expressing it, maybe like Lord Chaitanya himself, and then Rupa Goswami, who's more focusing on the sadhana on the external. Is it that they have to exist separately, or is that correct
No,
understanding?
not exactly from just, I mean, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited his internal ecstasies mainly with Sut Damodar and Ramananda Roy, especially in the Gambhira. Other than that, he was spreading the holy name, dancing in great ecstasy. So that's not necessarily he's exhibiting his internal, although it's a symptom of his internal absorption in Krishna. He is anapita chiram chira kuruna avatiyana kalo. He is spreading the mission and chanting the holy name of the Lord. So that's really what we are doing as well. So we are going on Harinam, but we're not kind of displaying our internal ecstasies of relationship with Krishna. We're serving the mission. Is that more clear, Balani Maipuma?
Yeah, thank you. That's I guess yeah, I may have a question later on, but thank you. That clears that up.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Now, for Lord Chaitanya, it is a symptom of his loving, aspiration to relish and dive into the moods of Radharani. Yeah. But from the general perspective, a devotee who is at the stage of, spontaneous devotion, he will be engaging Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, but his dancing or his engagement in the Sankirtan movement is externally going to be the same as someone who is not on that stage. Yes, see? But they're motivated internally. Their motivation to dance is different. Their motivation and their inspiration is different, but that's internal. But externally, they're building temples like the Goswamis were very busy developing Radhakund, Shyamakund, dealing with business people. They were very busy. That was they're serving the mission there. So that's their external. Yes, Alexander Ji.
Is this an internal engagement spontaneous for the greedy one?
For the
Does those is it the internal engagement spontaneous, or is it intentional?
No, it's natural. I don't know
It's
exactly what
natural.
you mean by intentional. It's a natural development of the soul's attraction to Krishna and his associates. So in that sense, it's natural.
Mhm.
But
Because
let's
I was wondering about the scenarios that comes in the mind of someone who's spontaneous, because the love wants to be expressed internally. So sometimes these scenarios that comes upon the mind, seeing himself in engaging in specific services that makes him feel in certain way that the heart desire.
now let's
And
just now at this point we're speaking about generally. Let's just start from this point. We're not speaking about devotees who are entering the realms of bhava, where their particular relationship with Krishna has been awakened completely, and they're in that type of meditation. This is talking about the sadhaka at the stage of bondage who has become attracted to the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And they get inspiration from hearing about Krishna and Krishna's pastime. So none of this type of thing is going to be going on in such a devotee at this stage. Yeah. And Marge speaks about that. Let's do as we say, like more details will be given. Yeah. I told everyone to hold on to your seats, didn't I? Right. Yes. Okay, so now then, let's move a slide. Okay. So now this is another famous verse. This is a good verse to become familiar with and read if you want to know more about this subject. It's text 8 from the Nectar of Instruction. It's quoted from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, both by Rupa Goswami. So I just read this verse, then we'll unpack it. Because this is the verse of Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Tatrahi. Okay. In the transcendental realm of Raja, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates. One should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practice, and at the stage of bondage, and in the stage of God realization when one is a Siddha Purusha or spiritually perfect soul. So what we're discussing here is the Raganuga Sadhana, which is mentioned here. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana. Okay? That's what we're kind of focusing on at the moment. Yeah. As well as, of course, some of the stage of perfection. Yeah. So we'll explain exactly what that means more. Okay. So again, sadhaka rupena. So rupena means form, sadhak form. So with the external body, devotees practice regulatory devotional service. Yeah. And then we have siddha rupena. So siddha means perfection, with a body suitable for eternal realized service. So the point I was mentioning to Bala Nimai's question, Krishna's eternally Nitya Siddha devotees, they exist in two forms. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, they appear as practicing Vaishnavas, sadhakas, who are aspiring to attain Krishna. You follow? So you have the sadhak form of Rupa Manjari is Rupa Goswami. So he writes as aspiring to attain perfection. So they appear as sadhakas. And in Krishna's pastimes as spontaneous associates. Okay, we're going step by step. Yeah. So two forms as sadhaka rupena and siddha rupena. Now, so these spontaneous or Raganuga bhaktas, devotees who are maybe at the stage of nishta, when they attain the stage of bhava, they have two identities. Okay? Externally, they practice as regulatory devotees, and internally, so we jumped ahead a bit, okay? So internally, they cultivate their newly manifested, Maharaj mentions it, Siddha Deha, relationship with Krishna.
I found this on the web.
I found this on the web. Okay, Siri just told me. Okay. Now then, now realization, so going up to the stage of bhava, realization of the spiritual identity matures as they approach prema through a systematic cultivation of transcendental devotion. Now, devotees not on the stage devotees not on the stage on the transcendental. Now, I just spoke about these here at the stage of sadhya. Now we're back here. Okay? So they're not on the spiritual platform. They have no concept of their spiritual form, and they cannot artificially conceive of one, and they should not. Yeah, they shouldn't imagine themselves as a particular associate of Radha, a particular associate of Krishna, or doing a particular service in their conditioned state. That's called sahaja. Yeah. Yeah. So so what does it mean then to follow a Rajrasi in a stage of bondage? It means it's very general. So they may be attracted to So they may be attracted to the gopis or the gopas or a particular type of service, but it's very general. Yeah. So they can aspire in their kind of not on the transcendental platform, they can aspire to be in Krishna's pastimes, but they cannot enter through meditation. You follow? You cannot barge in to the transcendental realm without being invited. And that invitation personally comes from Lalita and Rupa Manjari. Personally. Yeah, you cannot barge in. You can try. You can sit there and chant and imagine all types of things, but the real thing comes when you're invited, So now we just mentioned, because Marge is mentioning here, the danger of imagining one's Siddha Deha. It cannot be overstated enough. Yeah. Now this subject will be spoken more in chapter 28. Yeah, we're at chapter 10 now, so have to be patient. More details. Yeah. So spiritual life is a case of revelation. It's being revealed to you. It comes gradually through prolonged, unceasing effort. Okay? That's a lifetime. 40, 50, 30, 60, 70, prolonged, gradual effort. Okay? Hope we're not depressing everyone. Alexander's smiling. That's a good sign as well. Hare Krishna. Okay. And such effort must be. We okay? Vijay Prabhu, you still with us? Vijay Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, and if you don't mind, who is inviting us?
Well, ultimately, stage of perfection by the blessings of the Guru is the resonance of the spiritual world themselves. Yeah.
But you mentioned
Manjari, it could be Lalita,
Lalita and Vishaka.
Lalita Vishaka.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, so that comes.
That is a very high stage. Yes.
Yeah. We shouldn't artificially try to imagine ourselves at such a platform and enter through meditation.
Yes, you said no barging in.
Yes, no barging in.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So this must all be done in line with the disciplic succession of specifically the spiritual master. So if Bhava's not awakened, a devotee, you do not have any awareness of our spiritual form. It's only at stage of bhava where awareness becomes known, but full revelation comes at higher stages of bhava. Okay. Now, there's one example that's given of a pseudo devotee. Now, he took up, that's where he took up Babaji and was living near Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Right. So he's there, he's chanting, rounds, he's chanting probably 64 rounds a day and meditating on Astakala Yurida Smaran, and he's imitating, like he's probably experiencing something because he's in Vrindavan and he's chanting the holy name. So he's feeling something, but he's imitating, he's highlighting his ecstasy. Oh, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So, of course, Babaji Maharaj can see through his cheating or see through his immature, speculative mind. So he says here, this quote, just as a barren woman cannot give birth by imitating the sounds of labor, you cannot bring forth pure love of Krishna by imitating the sounds of ecstasy. Okay. All right. Another slide. There's a very attractive man here. Now, Suddha Vaishnavas. Now, this verse, Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Tatpurahi, they misinterpret this verse to mean that a sadhaka should follow the activities of a Vrajvasi, not just internally, but externally. So they dress like Gopi. That's their sadhana, to invoke Gopi Bhava. Okay, that's their mistake in this verse. Seva Sudhaka Rupena. Yeah. So there's a kind of sadhana for them. So Maharaj says, not much more to say about this sham in the name of devotion, you know. Now, then the other side, they dress as practitioners, but they neglect the activities of sadhana. And Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, during his time, there was one disciple of, get this pronunciation right, Hemalata Thakurani, Rupa Kaviraj. So he propagated this deviation. So his speculation was that the gopis, they don't accept spiritual masters. They have informal guides in how to serve Radha and Krishna, but they don't take diksha. Yeah. Also, they don't follow Ekadashi. Yeah. The gopis don't worship Shalagram Shilas, or they don't worship Tulsi. So therefore, this Rupa Kaviraj, he came up with a speculation that sadhakas should not do as well. We're aspiring to be residents of the spiritual world, and the spiritual world don't follow Ekadashi, so we should not follow Ekadashi. Yeah. Yeah, the idea. So apparently, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he had this person driven out of Vrindavan. Yeah, he didn't stand for his hypocrisy. He didn't stand for his speculation. And it said that this Rupa Kaviraj, he left his body suffering from leprosy. And actually, also in another account, also there was one, he criticized one person as well in Raj because they were constantly chanting the holy name. I forget the details of that story, but anyway. So you got the idea? There's two types of deviation of Suddha Vaishnava. They try it externally. Yes, this means, externally we should dress as gopis, then we can evoke gopi bhava. Or in the spiritual world, then they don't follow Ekadashi, so we should not follow. So, and lots could be said about this Siddha Pranali. Maharaj will speak about it more. But for now, I'll just read from the Nectar of Devotion. I think we know what Siddha Pranali is. It's where someone gets a spiritual identity to meditate upon as part of their sadhana. Now, it's not an unbona fide practice, but there isn't, it's lost its authenticity because persons of no qualification take up this process. But anyway, let's just read here for now. We'll speak about that more later. So the Siddha Pranali process is followed. This is from chapter 16, Nectar of Devotion. The Siddha Pranali process is followed by a class of men who are not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking themselves like that. This external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principles. In the opinion of Rupa Goswami, such activities are simply disturbances to the standard way of devotional service. Okay, so there's a whole history of that Siddha Pranali process. We won't have time to go through it now. Are there any questions at this point? Oh, okay. So then, what is the proper meditation for someone who's a sincere sadhaka, but they've not reached the stages of perfection? But they're at the stage of they're more naturally attracted. So they're at the stage of Raganuga Sadhana. So what is the proper meditation? And if they not going to enter into the pastimes, what is exactly the proper meditation? Oh, here's that slide which I put. Yeah, I forgot I did a slide for this, but here it is again. Hare Krishna. All right. Now, the proper meditation basically is to remember the activities of a Rajrashi, that one has become attracted to. So this is again Raganuga Sadhana. I keep on. It doesn't mean it's a stage of perfection. It's a particular path to perfection. Okay. So obviously, those attracted to the cowboy Sridham, they may meditate on Sridham's bodily features, and there's books of the Goswamis which will describe that, etc. So of those who are attracted to the service of Rupa Manjari, they may meditate on her services, a meeting with Krishna, etc. Yeah. So the question then is sometimes, and I've heard this question asked a few times actually. How do devotees know which Rajrasi to follow? How do you know which one? I'll put that as a question. Have a wild guess. How do you know which one to follow?
The guru might,
The guru.
yeah. The
Yeah, well,
spiritual master can.
yeah, the spiritual master can by, examining and asking you about your bhajan. You may do, but actually, the actual answer is that someone who's qualified to cultivate would never ask that question. Yeah, it's natural. It comes natural. You understand? So how do devotees know which Rasvasi to follow? Well, then as soon as someone asks that question, it means they're not qualified. It becomes known to you. You become attracted. I don't know, kind of turn it into give a mundane example. Say say a boy becomes attracted to a girl, or vice versa, and there's a group of boys, a group of girls, and then which one shall I be attracted to? No, you will be according to your particular modes of nature, which kind of coincide with each other. You're going to be attracted. You don't have to like that natural attraction. Yeah. So yeah.
It's quite personal, isn't it? It's personal. It comes from
It's very
within.
personal. It's personal. It's the most personal. It's called Varanadas, and we might get there today. Varanadas. It's the most personal thing to the soul.
Mm.
Deep, deep revelation and attraction that comes from the deepest place of the core of your existence. And you don't have to ask, but you will speak to the Guru for clarification and blessings for that particular smaran. Yeah. Yeah. But
Mm.
yeah, so it's not something whimsical. Yeah. Not something whimsical. So yes, let me just read it. It is not something that is whimsically adopted. A natural and a special appreciation for the pastimes of Krishna awakens in qualified devotees as they hear Srimad Bhagavatam, let's check the time, and chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. Now, this is the essence of it really, is that by hearing and chanting, by hearing without the fence, I emphasize without offense. First, we have to get to the stage of offenseless chanting. Then we have to learn to be absorbed in the holy name. Then, at some point, through purification, then naturally one's going to be drawn to a particular mood and a particular Rajrasi. Yeah. And Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, quote, special natural appreciation of the descriptions of a particular pastime of Godhead indicate the constitutional position of a living entity. So that becomes manifest a particular relationship to Krishna. Yeah. So again, externally, devotees who are at this stage of spontaneous practice, they follow the teachings and examples of the sadhaka forms of the residents of Vrindavan, like Rupa Goswami. Yeah. So they're known as Rupa Nugas, yeah, following Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. There's different purports we can give to this Rupa Nuga. But for now, one is following the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. So in that sense, devotees can meditate upon Rupa Goswami, yeah, understanding the heart of his mission to spread Krishna consciousness. And then Maharaj brings out a very important point that we as members of ISKCON, we accept Prabhupada as an eternal resident of Vrindavan. So in that sense, his example is very relevant to us. Yeah. So in other words, to be a part of ISKCON, we have to be absorbed in Prabhupada's personal qualities, his compassion, his preaching spirit, etc. And also there's many books written by his disciples to help us, absorb our minds in Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada left many instructions in his books and lectures and conversations, etc. Yeah. So, yes. So in this way, as members of ISKCON, we can practice remembering one of Lord Chaitanya's confidential associates. So that's the process. Yeah. Okay. Now the term sadhaka, I think I've already clarified that this sadhaka rupa, it doesn't mean like Rupa Goswami is sadhaka rupa. It doesn't mean he's a sadhaka like us. All right, he's a perfected soul. That he's showing us how to practice devotion by engaging in regular activities of hearing and chanting. Okay, so sadhaka or rupa. So it's different. So okay, we are sadhakas, and we have a form, all right? But we're not like Rupa Goswami. Yeah. So just to clarify that, I think. Okay. Any questions?
Hi Krishna, Mani Prabhu, I have a question. So in the 9 processes of devotional service, one of them is dasyam. You're thinking of yourself as a servant. And I was thinking I know in one purport Prabhupada says that I think it's the first 7 applied to practicing devotees, not spontaneous devotees. So there's an idea that in some respect we're thinking of ourselves as servants. If we're not thinking of ourselves as servants in our spiritual form, what is you're saying, what is the specific way to think of ourselves as a servant? Is that as a servant of Prabhupada as a mission? Is that what it was sort of?
Yeah, that's basically, yeah. I mean, that's the underlying mood of all souls, whether Siddha or practitioners or all the expansions of Krishna even. Everyone is engaged in service to the Lord, even Radharani. We are all servants. So dasya. And that's generally the mood of service that's emphasized, of service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't imagine the particular rasa or relationship with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We engage as his servant. That's your ras. Yeah. So everyone in the whole of creation, every jiva, no matter what position they are, we're all servants of the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So yeah, that's your ras. Now, as we know, in the spiritual realm, there are servants of the household of Krishna. Yeah. There are those who do have the particular service of dasya, of service. Yeah. They're serving the house of Mother Yasoda, and they're servants of Krishna. They're not his cowherd boyfriends, they're not, etc. Their service is service. But the cowherd boys and the gopis, they serve Krishna as well, but the rasa is a little bit different. And those who are in Vaikuntha, they are serving Vishnu. Yeah. So the underlying kind of stay bar of every condition of every soul is service. But in that verse, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam, I think Prabhupada mentions there that there's different types of service. Surit is more intimate. One is general, and a general one is more at the stage of regulative devotion. But then there's a more intimate servant of the Lord, who may sometimes take liberties with the Lord in a mood of friendship, intimate friendship. Surit, just like Arjuna, he regretted when he saw the universal form, his very intimate exchanges with Krishna, lying on the bed, joking with him. So that's another. Maitri and Surit. Nectar Devotion analyzes the two aspects of that dasya ras there in that verse. You know, it's more.
Uddhava as well? Is he one of those, like the Dasyaras Uddhava?
Yeah, dasya ras is Uddhava is dasya. I'll say dasya ras is Uddhava. No, Uddhava. Yeah, you can probably think of some more. So Uddhava, he's in this mood of dasya ras, and that's his position. He doesn't have a yeah. I would say whatever, he's interesting that he maintains that, although he's greatly inspired by the gopis, but he chooses to maintain his position as Dasya. Because if everyone was a gopi, it'd be a bit restricting to Krishna's experience. So therefore, he's quite happy to be in this mood of a servant. And that's generally our mood which we practice sadhana in, the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. So it's a very important point. It's very good you brought that out. That's the underlying mood, of everyone. Okay, did that help, Balanim?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, everyone else is okay? We lost, no? Nearest still here? Yes, Hare Krishna. Alexander, we're okay? Should we go forward? Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Nice picture, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, a very nice picture.
Yes. See, now you've seen a picture of Radha and Krishna and you all feel spontaneous attraction. You feel a natural attraction to looking at beautiful Radha and Krishna. That's what Prabhupada says. Do you remember we mentioned that devotees engage in the service to Radha and Krishna deities? That's very advantageous for developing this spontaneous love. Yeah? Prabhupada mentions that in the Nectar Devotion. Yeah. So here we go. So activities of spontaneous practice. Yes. So let me get my bearings here. Yes, Rupa Goswami says that the second external aspect of spontaneous service in practice, so Raganuga Sadhana, is the performance of regulative devotional activities. So someone at the stage of Raganuga Sadhana, they're still a conditioned soul, but they're attracted to Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. They will, again, we mentioned it many times, they will engage in regulative devotional activities. Now, finally, we're mentioning or the Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smara Pada Sevanam. Also, the 64 items that's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, beginning with hearing and chanting, that's all useful in spontaneous practice, obviously. Yeah, so again, those who have natural attraction, they do not neglect the regulative principles, but they may concentrate on the devotional service that further induces their meditation of their attraction. Yeah. And that will be done under guidance of one's gurus, shiksha, diksha, guru. Yeah. Okay. So they're engaged in regulatory devotion, but in their personal practice, they may concentrate on a particular type of hearing. Yeah. So they don't neglect the regulative principles, but they concentrate on those devotional items that further induce their meditation. Basically, they read more about Krishna's pastimes. Basically put. Yeah. But then there's other books by the Goswamis which go into more detail. Yeah. So, in other words, they don't give up hearing, but they spend more time hearing topics that nourish their particular mood, their particular serving mood. So this is Raganuga Sadhana. Now, also a point to mention here at this point, a point to mention at this point, is that generally we got regulative devotional service and we got Raganuga Sadhana. It's not now. It's mixed. It's not as if it's not just one or the other. Generally, devotees will be practicing a mixture of both. But then gradually those who are practicing regulated devotion, through the mixture of more spontaneous practices, they become more and more spontaneous. But even in, Maharaj mentioned one time that even those who are accomplished in spontaneous devotional service, they will still may have some aspects of regulative practice. Right, just to make things more complicated. Yeah. Sometimes the activities of Raganuga Sadhana is approached from the mood of Vaidhi. Right, explain what that means. So we're hearing about Raganuga Sadhana is that the Raganuga sadhakas, they're more specific in hearing and chanting about Krishna. Right, so we may not have that natural attraction, we may or may not have, but then we hear about it. So then we decide to make it part of our practice because we've heard it in scripture. You understand? Not because we've been naturally attracted, because we heard in scripture. But that's good. That means it's good. If you hear in scripture that, Raganuga sadhakas, they concentrate on hearing about Krishna, then, all right, that's good. Oh, because they do it, then, and then I would like to do that. You understand? That's Vaidhi. It's not natural. Now, if you do that, it may become natural. You follow how it may be mixed. I mean, I didn't understand this at first, and at some point, I was studying this subject and hearing Maharaj speak on this subject, and yeah, okay, yeah, can be mixed. Okay, there's a bit of a side point. It was time check, 52 minutes. Okay. Yes. Yeah, so devotees attracted by the exchanges between Krishna and the cowherd boys, they read books describing the gopas. Yeah. For those following the goddesses of Raj, the gopis, there's books. There's more, in our line, there's more books and details given about the gopis' attraction to Krishna, because that happens to be the line that we are following. No, not exclusively. There are some Gaudiya Vaishnavas who it was absorbed in the mood of the Gopas. And there's one book I started reading. I left it in London, but an interesting book, Circle of Friends. It is. It's all about the service and the mood of Gopas. Yeah. It's one Gaudiya Vaishnava who's written lots of details about that. Okay. Okay, we okay so far? Any questions? Now we will get to this. Well, how much time we have left? 53. Let's get to this slide. Okay, and what's on the slide. Okay, Maharaj, this is important. I think let's bring this out. Yeah, so for example, Maharaj gives an example. Instead of thinking how to dress the deities of Radha and Krishna according to the rules of Archan, they dress them thinking about how the Vrajavasis do it. Doesn't mean they concoct a new way of dressing, but their inner meditation is how the Vrajavasis are dressing Radha and Krishna. Okay, so that's an example of someone who's practicing Raganuga Sadhana may develop further that mood of attraction. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm jumping forward a bit in my notes. I want to. Okay. Any questions here? Okay, I've jumped through a few notes here, but okay. Now, these 5 points are coming from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. So, on how devotees cultivating, they're cultivating. So, they're not perfected souls, they're sadhakas, they're cultivating spontaneous devotion. Which practices to select specifically? This can be quite detailed, but so there's these 5 here. So he divides the 5 activities of bhakti into 5 categories. And for those who read the books of Shivaram Swami, he speaks about this elaborately in the Sankalpa Kaumudi. Okay, it's in Suddha Bhakti. He speaks about it more elaborately in Sankalpa Kaumudi. Okay, so we're clear where we are? Yeah, devotees are at the stage of Raganuga Sadhana. Then Vishnu Chakravarti Tagore gives 5 how to decide what to do and what not to do to cultivate further their particular attraction. So composed of bhava, so this means the 4 moods of servitude, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. So this will saturate everything they do, will be saturated with the flavor of that attraction. Composed of bhava. Yeah. Everything, for instance, their meditation during Mangalarti, their meditation during Tulsi Puja, their meditation is one thing, and that's that particular mood of their attraction. That's composed of a particular bhava. And it doesn't mean bhava, okay, bhava's got different meanings. This doesn't mean you've reached the stage of bhava. Bhava here means the mood. Like someone who's shopping at Christmas, they're in the bhava of shopping. Okay, it doesn't mean at the stage of bhava. You follow that, just to make that clear, yeah? So everything they do is colored with that. So that's composed of bhava. Yeah. So everything they do, they're chanting when they're chanting, they're thinking of that attraction. When they're in kirtan, they're thinking of the attraction. When they're the Tulsi, they're thinking of that attraction that they have, and they're cultivating it. Yeah. So things composed of bhava. So then related to bhava means the primary limbs such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, hearing Krishna's pastimes and serving the spiritual master. They are indispensable. A Raganuga Sadhaka will not give these up. Serving the Guru, obviously hearing and chanting, and obviously remembering Krishna's pastimes. They are indispensable. Yeah, because they're related to one's mood. Now, there's other practices that are not indispensable, but they're favorable. Yeah, so it's good to do because it will enhance that attraction. So that's following Ekadashi, like we gave the example before, someone so-called speculated. No, we give up that. No, there's favorable for developing your natural attraction. So we follow Ekadashi, we follow Janmashtami. Yeah. We take part in Janmashtami. Yeah. We may take vows in the month of Kartik, renounce sense pleasures and worship Tulsi Devi. Okay, so they're favorable for one's particular attraction to Krishna. You may not, so they're not indispensable, but they're favorable. Okay, everyone? I told you to hold on to your seat before we began, didn't I? Okay. Quite detailed, isn't it? Then the next one, they're not, they're neither compatible nor they're favorable. are kind of neutral, so they're optional. This is from Nectar Devotion as well, I think. Perhaps, yeah, Bhakti Westminster Sindhu. So wearing the deity's garlands, stamping the body of the with the Lord's names. Interesting, it's mentioned. It's not, you know, it mentions it's neutral. You may do, you may not do. And then opposed, things opposed to your particular attraction. So these Raganuga sadhakas, they will not do these things. They will not do a smaran of Krishna's queens in Dwarka. They will not spend an hour reading about, or 2 hours reading about the queens of Dwarka and their specific services. Yeah, they won't do that because it won't be favorable. It won't be, yeah, it won't be. It's a different mood. Okay. 7 o'clock. Let me just finish. I want to finish. This is an important point. Now, if we're hopefully we'll be blessed at some stage in our spiritual development, to perhaps this will be very relevant to us. Now, we should remember that as members of ISKCON, we must first consider the example that our behavior will set for newcomers. Yeah. So in other words, it's important that more senior devotees who are at this stage of practice, they will encourage by setting the proper example. So in other words, if they lead or if they neglect basic practices, then there's others will follow. It's going to be confusing. So Marge mentions that here. Yeah. Yeah, then he mentions, I read this here, Lord Chaitanya's mercy is the most indispensable item for spontaneous practice. And that mercy showers down on those who selflessly serve his mission. There's a whole chapter on that, on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Raganuga Sadhana, okay? Okay, so we're paused there for today. Hare Krishna. Hope that was of interest. Sorry if it went a bit deep, but it's good to speak about these subjects. It's there in our scripture. It's good for us to be clear. In the past, it's not been so clear, the subject of Raganuga Sadhana. It's been a dirty word, Raganuga sometimes. But we should have a good, clear understanding of it. So next week, we'll pick up. I just flashed through the slides. Living in Raj, what does that mean practically for us? When the mind is, then we'll speak about the 4 stages of absorption, the different levels of smaran, etc., 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 like that. Okay. Any final questions or comments from anyone? Something in the chat. Let's just put them. These are things just to yeah, Vijay Krishna comment earlier. No barging in. But didn't Prabhupada, yeah. But didn't Prabhupada barge in when he went to preach in the USA? Yes. He's mentioned, why can't I follow in his footsteps and barge into the spiritual world if Prabhupada barged into the USA? It's a different context. For like preaching, you should be bold and fearless and barge into people's lives and give them a book. But when it comes to this type of inner spiritual development, you cannot barge in. You have to be invited, you know. But interesting point. Okay, any final comments from anyone? Hare Krishna, okay. For me, it's just gone 7 o'clock. For you, it's just gone 1:30. Okay, so thank you for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukti Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.